As you guys heard, I'm from Brazil, so three things. English is not my native language, so it's bad. If you don't understand what I mean, just stop me or throw something at me, and then I'll take the signal that something's not right. Second thing, we don't speak about soccer this week, okay? Please. And the third one, after seeing the presentation that was just done, Brazil also struggled with foot and mouth disease. And I think the key things, if I may advise something, is communication, that I think you guys are promoting through MPO, and a tight vaccination schedule. That's how Brazil got rid of foot and mouth disease. Brazil is a free zone of foot and mouth disease now, and has been for the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years. But it took time. It took coordination from you guys, it took communication. And we have, just like you, a lot of borders. So sometimes we don't know where the animals are coming from. But the response needs to be fast. And that's exactly how Brazil was able to get rid of the foot and mouth disease. In the end of the day, you guys are the ones that suffer the most. That impacts production, financial, health, and all the edible product that you can commercialize. So yeah, if you guys would like any contacts in Brazil to understand, discuss, happy to make this connection, because we suffer with that. Okay, so vaccination. We use the same vaccine from Biogenesis. It's the only thing that Argentina does well. This foot and mouth disease vaccination. Okay? But let's focus on what I'm supposed to talk to you guys here. Efficiency under pressure, right? And I'm happy to talk about our probiotics that has been available in South Africa for the last 6 to 7 years through Envarto, our commercial partner here in the country. So really quick, because I know time goes fast and I tend to speak a lot, but basically, I want to maybe discuss some challenges that you guys might face, okay? And then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on this summary that I got. After that, we're going to be talking about microbial solutions, specifically how probiotics can help you and mainly your cows, your calves, your operation. Then we go specifically on bovacillus. What is it? Why are we promoting a probiotic like this in South Africa, but not only in South Africa, all over the globe? And then talking about rumen, post-rumen, and then some of the results until some customer-based trials that we also have to share with you guys. Okay? I apologize, so you have to trust me on what I'm going to tell here. But basically what I try to go after and then ask AI to do a summary, what would be the main challenge on pasture-based dairies? And of course, we have things that we cannot control. Rain. Can we control rain? No. Can we control, or in advance, foot and mouth disease? No, nobody expected that. So there are some things on your scenarios that are uncontrollable. It's out of our range to decide if it happens or not. However, there are things, just like was presented here, that we can control. We can provide a better nutrition, even in the fluctuation of the raw materials that you guys might have from the dry season to the rainy season. We can control, or we can optimize animal health. So those things, for me, two things, are the main drivers that we can impact the health, performance, and financials of the dairy operation. Regardless if I'm talking about an enclosed dairy system or a pasture-based dairy. Those are things that we can control. And then, just out of curiosity, I was reading some papers, and I apologize because these are Irish papers, okay? But I was trying to understand from farmer surveys what would be the main concerns in pasture-based dairies. And this is, all this information is coming from Ireland, okay? And basically, what is coming on top of the surveys are animal health and the disease associated with the transition period. So it tells me that, well, we can do a good management in the transition period to optimize animal health. And if we do a good transition period, I hope you guys agree with me, this has a beneficial effect throughout the lactation of that cow. How do we know that? Well, again, I apologize. But these are just references to tell you, and I'll point out to this one specifically. So you see 1 versus 0. And this is, again, this is enclosed dairies, okay? But basically, if my transition cow in the first 21 days post-calving has one adverse health event, let's say my cow has metritis. Throughout the lactation, she's producing 357 kilos less milk. So if we divide that by 305, 1.2 kilos less of milk per cow per day. Just because she had one adverse health event in the first 21 days post-calving. But how about if my cow has mastitis and metritis? Well, this number almost double. So this tells us, or at least me, health is going to drive the performance of your animals. It's not the other way around. Health always is going to be first. And because the animals are healthy, they are more productive. So we need to ensure that our cows, our calves, they are healthier. And then the same way here, right? This is much more focused on calves. Basically, calves that have diarrhea, they grow less. If they grow less, they have slower puberty attainment. And over time, they produce less milk, they produce less solids. And not only the first lactation, throughout the productive life. So this also tells us that, well, health is paramount also for my newly born calf. It can impact my whole productive life. What does it mean, right? Again, sorry, it's a bad figure. But what I'm showing you here is that when the cows have inflammation, we saw some data on mastitis. It's the same way if you do think about metritis, it's inflammation, right? But sometimes we think only mastitis, oh, it's impacting only the mammary gland. Or if I have metritis, oh, it's impacting only my reproductive tissue. No. When the cows have inflammation, everything is impacted in the animal. And this is an example. What I'm showing you here is that when the cows have inflammation, so this black line, the degradation of the fiber in the rumen is lower. If the degradation of the fiber is slower, what happens to your cows? What happens to the intake? What happens to the milk production? Just to think about. So inflammation has a direct effect on the target site, but has a systemic effect. Because if the rumen is not functioning properly, well, we are not degrading the nutrients as we should. We are not producing the energy that the animal needs. And in the end of the day, we're not producing the milk that you guys need to pay the expense. And again, why does it matter? Because basically, again, for each unit improvement on fiber digestion, intake can increase by roughly 200 grams, and mainly fat-corrected milk can increase roughly by 250 grams. This is just if I increase from 44 to 45% the digestion of the fiber in the rumen. Why in the rumen? Because more than 90% of the fiber digestion happens in the rumen. So that's why we need to optimize and maximize the fiber faster degradation at the rumen level. Okay? And one thing that you guys were talking about, right? Diarrhea, disease. This is also associated with the relationship, if I can say that, between the good and the bad bacteria that the animals have. You heard about E. coli. Is E. coli a good or a bad bug? Most of the times. Bad. Salmonella, is it good or bad? Bad. Clostridium, is it good or bad? Bad. Cryptosporidium, is it good or bad? Bad, right? So usually, when we have more of the bad bacteria compared to the good bacteria, happens what we call leaky gut. So basically, the ability of the cow or the calf to maintain a good nutrient absorption and integrity of the cells is disrupted. Of course, we're focusing on the bacteria side, but mycotoxin can also cause leaky gut. Heat stress can also cause leaky gut. Transition period also can cause leaky gut. Weaning of my heifer calf can also cause leaky gut. Vaccination, sorry to say that, but vaccination also causes an inflammation on the animal. So that's why if you guys look at the dry matter intake of your animals on the day before and in the following 3 to 4 days after the vaccination, you're going to see the dry matter intake going down. And then over time, it's recovery. It's a necessary inflammation, but it also causes inflammation. So all of that, in the end of the day, is going to impact the health. And again, I'm repeating myself, performance and profitability of the operation. Again, just to show, if I have more salmonella, I have more leaky gut. And of course, we immediately think about the calf, because usually we necropsy the calf is dead, we can see red gut, we can see a lot of gas, we can see a lot of bubbles in the gut of the calf. However, I'm surprised, every time that we talk about Clostridium, Salmonella, and E. coli, we listen more and more about it in the postpartum cow. Because those bugs are present everywhere. And if the cow is not consuming enough dry matter intake, just like was said before, is not getting enough energy that she needs, is the exactly moment where those pathogenic bacteria can come and punch your cows. That's exactly what they are waiting. Clostridium is there. Everywhere there is Clostridium. In our boots, probably there is Clostridium. And when I say Clostridium, it's mainly Clostridium perfringens. In the grass, there is Clostridium perfringens. In the water, there is Clostridium perfringens. And Clostridium sits there. But when the cow is weak, or there is an abrupt change in the diet and there is more nutrients leaving the rumen without being digested, that's when Clostridium perfringens starts attacking you guys and your cows. Okay? So pathogens, super important to keep an eye on them. Yeah, sorry for that. But here, who knows what a probiotic is? Who takes probiotics every day? Who drinks yogurt? So you guys take probiotics. When I was a kid in Brazil, we had those small Yakult. I don't know how you call here in South Africa, but it's a fermented milk. Fermented milk, if you guys drink it, is also a source of probiotic. So sometimes we're taking probiotics without even knowing. And the definition of a probiotic is live bacteria that when we feed in the right amount, will bring health benefits to the host. Live, right amount, and health. Are we talking about performance here on this definition? No, because again, I'm repeating myself. Cows that are healthier, they are more productive, they are more profitable. So that's why the goal of a probiotic is to support the health of the calf and of the cow. Listen about this word, supportive. It's not a treatment. So the goal of a probiotic is to reduce the occurrence of a disease. If you have the disease, you need to treat accordingly. So that's why we say it's a prevention and not a treatment. That's why we need to take every day. Does it mean that you never get sick? No. It means that it's going to be more difficult for you to get sick. Okay? And then our goal here, besides talking about those health effects, is also to talk about a specific probiotic that we are talking or dealing in South Africa, that is called Bovacillus. And basically, what we talk about Bovacillus is a key feed stable technology that enhances the performance and health of both beef and dairy cattle. And here are the three main points that I'll be discussing with you from now on. Stability. What does it mean? It means that any technology that you guys decide to put on your feed, it needs to be stable enough to go through all the feed preparation process. And this includes pelletization. This includes the presence of macro and trace minerals. This includes sometimes the presence of moisture and the presence of other bacteria as well. And then, really quick, we're going to be talking about health and how everything together impacts the performance of lactating dairy cows. Okay? So basically, when we think about Bovacillus, it's a combination of two bacilli, so Bacillus licheniformis and Bacillus subtilis. For calves, 1 gram per head per day, and for dairy cows, 3 grams per head per day. That's what we recommend. And one of the key things about probiotics based on bacilli is the long shelf life, or the stability. What does it mean? So basically here, we prepare 3 pelleted feeds. The only difference was the temperature, 75, 85, and 95. And after we did the pelletization, we can count the amount of bacteria that we have there. And what I'm showing you here is that compared to the dashed line, the amount that we recovered after the pelletization is what we added before the pelletization. So it tells you that a probiotic, like Bovacillus, is thermostable. But it remains stable over time. Does anybody here buy feed every day? Yes, no? Most of the times that's the answer. So it means, again, the technology that you decide to use, it needs to remain stable until you decide to use according to the expiration date. So basically what we did, we took the same pelleted samples, and then we kept them for up to 6 months after the pelletization. And then over time, we were doing the counts of the bacilli. And basically, what is key is that 6 months after was the same count as time 0. So you don't lose the bacteria during the storage process. The bacteria is there and remains there. Okay? And if we go to a more commercial scenario, here is only a per mix. Okay, again, I apologize for the image, but You have to trust me because here we have months after the preparation of the premix. So basically we have 0, 1, 3, 6, and 12 months. And again, recovery is stable. So the presence of macro and trace minerals also does not impact the stability and the survival of the bacteria that we put in the premix, in this case, the Bacillus bacteria. Okay? And then the first site that a bacteria is going to arrive or reach in a cow, okay, is the rumen. So what happens in the rumen, right? Before telling the effects, again, you'll not see anything. But basically what we wanted to do here is just to show that the bacteria can grow in the rumen, and I hope you can see some lines here, and then in the post-rumen. Because if we are talking that a probiotic can have effects in the rumen and in the post-rumen, well, they need to grow. They need to be active. And that's what we did here. So basically we took rumen fluid, and then we took ileum, cecum, and colon fluid, and then we put the bacteria there. And then we measure the growth of those bacteria. And basically they can grow in all regions of the digestive tract. If they can grow, they can deliver the results that we expect. What kind of results? Well, bacilli, they are extremely good in producing enzymes. All bacilli are the same? No. Because just like us, we are not the same. I love soccer. It's the only time that we're going to talk about soccer today, okay? I love soccer. Does it mean I'm good? Because I'm a human being like Cristiano Ronaldo? I'm not saying Messi. Like Cristiano Ronaldo? No. It's the same analogy when you think about the bacteria. Some bacteria, they can be good in producing enzymes. Some bacteria, they can be good in producing compounds to kill Clostridium perfringens. And some are not good for anything. It happens. But what we know is that the bacilli that are in Bovacillus, they are extremely good producers of cellulase and silanase, basically fiber-degrading enzymes. Here, we took more than 90 4G-based substrates, including some of South Africa. And then we put in the rumen fluid, and then we evaluate how much fiber was degraded over 24 or 30 hours post the incubation of the feed, with or without the probiotic. Basically, without the probiotic, 40% of the fiber was digested. With the probiotic, roughly 44% of the fiber was digested. If we break down by forage type, so basically silage, we have grass silage, corn silage, pea silage, alfalfa silage, barley silage. 44% of fiber degradation without the probiotic, 48% with. Hay and straw, oat hay, oat straw, alfalfa hay, all types of hay that we can think about. 35 to 37.5. And then last but not least, grass. We have a lot of ryegrass here from Australia, for example. Basically 41 to 44.5. So different forage types, results basically roughly the same. Because those bacteria, they can produce enzymes that degrade the fiber. And that's the impact that could have on your operation or pasture-based dairies. But not only that, so basically, we also took concentrates from the Netherlands. Why the Netherlands? Because we have a partner there that supplied all the substrates to us. And basically, we increased the NDF degradation of those concentrate feeds from 30 to 35.5. Different feed types, different qualities, different profiles. But the enzymatic activity at the rumen level is something that Bovacillus can help you with. And then we go to the post-rumen effects. I have 15 minutes more. Yeah. Then we go to the post-rumen effects, and it's 100% associated with health, gut health. And I joke that after methane, sustainability and methane, gut health and leaky gut is the second most spoken term that I listen everywhere I go. First question, Bruno, bacillus reduces methane? I said no. How about gut health? Yes, then I can show something, right? Again, sorry, you don't have to believe me, but here what we did, we just did what we call a pathogen inhibition assay. So we took the 5 serotypes of Clostridium perfringens, and then we put with our probiotic bacteria. And then what we are showing here is that those graphs, they give you an inhibition zone. So it's just the efficacy of the bacteria in killing that pathogenic one. In this case, Clostridium perfringens. So what this tells us is that as a direct effect, Bacillus can reduce the growth and survival of Clostridium perfringens. And then we have what we call indirect effects on the gut health. So basically keeping the gut healthier. Because those bacteria, they can sit in the gut. When they sit in the gut, there is less space for the pathogens, for the mycotoxins, actually to damage the villi. So it's a physical inhibition. It's what we call biofilm formation. I know if some of you do silage, you hate this word, biofilm. However, in the cow, in the calf, biofilm is beneficial because it's a physical trap against the challenge that the cow might face or the calf might face. Okay? So everything in the gut is associated with health. So rumen, better nutrient digestion. In the gut, lower gut, health benefits to the animals. And then really quick, a transition cow study that we did. Why transition cow? Maybe the most stressful period to a dairy cow. Regardless if we're talking about pasture-based dairies or intensive dairies. The challenges are the same. So what we did here, basically TMR with or without the bacillus. 30 days pre-calving until 60 days post-calving to get until the peak of the lactation of the cows. Basically, what we saw pre-partum, more feed intake. And usually, okay, I'm not saying this is true for everywhere. Usually, a cow that consumes more feed pre-partum, it's going to be the one consuming more feed postpartum. And it's also going to be the more productive one. So basically what we saw is that cows fed the probiotic on the postpartum, they also consumed more feed. And they produced more milk. This is raw milk yield. When we evaluated the milk composition, more fat and more protein. And this study was done in Brazil. Okay, so in Brazil we are paid more for the fat than for the protein. So that's why they adjust the milk production based on the fat content of the milk. So basically, over 60 days, we're talking 0.9 kilos more milk per cow per day on average. However, those cows were being housed in a compost bedding. And as I always tell, compost bedding is the most efficient system if you have a good management. Because then you have the comfort, you have the welfare, health, and the production of the cow. However, if you don't have a good management, this is exactly what can happen. High somatic cell count. And this is exactly what we saw. So roughly 820,000 cells in the control group. With bacillus, we dropped it to 530. But we also dropped the number of cows that produced the milk with somatic cell count above the threshold. In this case, the threshold was 200,000 cells. Slightly similar to what the previous speaker talked about, showing the different categories or number of cows according to the somatic cell count in the milk. So that's what we did here. You need to trust me, but again, fiber digestion in the cows fed the probiotic was higher. Fecal score prepartum also higher. Makes sense. Digesting more, better fecal score. And we also collected the colostrum samples. So basically, we evaluated the Brix in the colostrum of the cows that were fed or not, the bovacillus. Basically, 24% Brix in the control group. With the probiotic, we increased the Brix quality to 26.5. But again, also, we were able to increase the number of cows producing a colostrum of good quality. So for those of you that do a colostrum bank in the farm, I do believe this is super important, because you're going to get the primiparous cows that do not produce either the amount or the quality that you need. And then if you have the colostrum bank, you have a high quality colostrum that can complement that colostrum produced by the cows that don't reach the target. Okay? So this was done in transition cows. However, last year, we got the approval of bovacillus in EU. So in the whole European Union, bovacillus is the first and only bacteria-based probiotic approved for milking ruminants. So this includes cows, sheep, and goats. So it was a good Christmas gift for us in the company, because we started this process in 2019 with all the trials, lab analysis, and the dossier. So it was more than 6 years waiting until this kind of stamp came. And when I say stamp, it's a stamp because it tells you that the strains that you have, they are safe. Safe for the cow, but also for us, because we consume milk and we eat the cheese. They are stable, just like I told you. Those pellet stability studies that I showed you were the ones that we submitted to the EU Commission. And last was associated with the efficacy. So it's improving the milk production, it's improving the feed efficiency or the solids production in the milk. That's exactly what we had to achieve. And that's what we did, okay? So overall, and this is a summary of the studies, so we did studies in US, EU, in different parts of EU, so we have BMRs, we have a study done in the Netherlands with high proportion of forage in the diet. But overall, what we are showing here is that bovacillus can increase milk yield roughly by 2.6%. I'll not talk about absolute numbers, because we're talking about cows between 35 and 42 kilos of milk, okay? So as a relative improvement, 2.6% improvement on milk yield. Also, some change, and mainly in protein and lactose, on solids yield. And because we are producing more with the same amount of feed, statistically speaking, feed efficiency went up. Feed efficiency is one of the most important KPIs we can use. I know in the dairy, pasture-based dairy, it's super difficult to evaluate that. But feed efficiency is the amount of milk produced per kilogram of feed consumed. It's one of the best metrics to evaluate the efficacy or the profitability of the dairies. So just a quick calculation that Willie and I did, okay? So basically, and I don't know if that's number too far, but 1 kilogram of milk, 7.8 Randy, maybe a little bit less. And then if we took the improvement of 2.6% in a 20 kilo milking cow, that would give us 0.52 kilos extra milk. Then the cost of bovacillus would be 0.6 Randy per cow per day, or 219 Randys per cow per year. Basically, we're getting 4.6 to 1 as an ROI. Quick and dirty calculation that we did. We're not even considering anything associated with colostrum quality, as in Europe, they are considering that. But just to keep in mind how a microbial solution can help you on a day-to-day operation, okay? Again, just case studies that we did, Spain and Italy, start feeding bovacillus prior to the calving, more milk, and better reproduction, because the cows were healthier, less ketosis, less death per cooled cows. That's what a probiotic should give us, better health. If they are healthier, they are more productive. And then let me go just to New Zealand. So this is a case customer-based study that we did before and after. 1 year before, they were feeding competitor plus a postbiotic. Then the year after with bovacillus, 3 grams per head per day. Basically, you can see the after as the dark line and the before, the green light line. I know it's a comparison study year over year, so that's why we show that only in the end, okay? Because we need to be cautious on how we talk about it. But that's what we saw in the farm. More milk solids. New Zealand, you're paid by kilograms of milk solids, which I think you guys also might be at some point. So better profitability in an operation like this because the cows were healthier. I'm showing only the production side, okay? So I made it, okay? So basically, thanks first for the opportunity, but basically, you guys know all the challenges that you have. Okay, I'm not here to repeat myself. Even after the foot and mouth disease, I don't have the place to talk about the challenges that you guys have. But think about the probiotics as a supportive tool. The same way is a supportive tool for me, can be a supportive tool for you and your farm. And the healthier cows, they are more productive. If they're more productive, you guys are making more money. That's what we want, okay? Thank you. I'll be glad to take any questions that you might have.